before I start sharing, I need that wonderful Kenyan welcome. And I forget what you call it, but Kenyans have a wonderful way of welcoming. And I need to hear that Kenyan welcome. So if you all would unmute and give me that Kenyan welcome, I cannot start. I need that energy. So come to me now. Let me hear it. Come on. Come on.
Karibu.
Awesome.
Karibu.
Thank you.
Welcome.
So
Welcome.
much. Thank you so much. I love it. I love it. That you guys just gave me energy. And so I am so grateful. If you would be so kind as to mute your microphone again so that that way I don't hear the feedback. Thank you so much. Yes, I feel welcome. You just gave me the energy that I need. Maybe I can share a few things today that will help you. So a couple of things that I want you to know about me is that I love my life. And the part of the reason that I love my wife is because my life is that I have an amazing family. So I am the husband of one wife. My beautiful wife's name is Kendra, and I'm going to share her with you. And we have three children. On the left, you see, I'm sorry, on the right, you see my oldest daughter. Her name is Anna Lay Mackenzie. On the left, you see my second daughter. Her name is Avia Lynn. And as you can see, this picture was taken actually a year ago. And a year ago, my wife was with child. And so we actually had a COVID baby, and one of the things that you should know about me is that I hold an honorary doctorate, and the reason that I can tell you that I hold an honorary doctorate is because last year in June, on the 6th of June, I had the distinct privilege of delivering my son myself. So you can call me Damien, but if you want to honor me, you can call me Dr. Damien, because we had this baby boy during the pandemic. And because it was our third child, he decided he was coming very quickly. We could not make it to the hospital in time. And so in the middle of our bedroom floor, I had the privilege and the honor of bringing my baby boy. His name is Isaiah. I had the privilege of delivering him myself. And we just celebrated his first birthday last month. And here he is now at 1 year old. This is my little guy. And so I'm a family man, and I love my life. And I wanted to share that with you just so that you know that, look, today we're just going to talk. I just want to talk to you today because I know that this topic that I'm going to be sharing from today, I know that it's critically important to you. It's critically important for everyone. The topic that I'm going to be sharing from is going to be the power of focus. And right at the beginning, here's what I want to share with you, that anytime someone fails to achieve their potential, you can almost always trace it to broken focus. Anytime someone doesn't bring their dream forward, and listen, you just heard from Cedric. Cedric is a good friend of mine. I actually met Cedric on the transformation trip in Costa Rica. That is where I met Cedric. And let me tell you, he walks the talk. He walks the talk. And here's what I can tell you. Cedric is a person that is very focused. Anytime you see someone that is achieving great results in their life, it always comes down to focus. The difference between those who achieve and those who do not achieve comes down to focus. And you very rarely hear people talk about this topic because I think it's misunderstood. And we live in an age right now, in a time right now, where there's so many competing commitments, so many things that are competing for our attention, so many things that are competing for our time, that we've lost the emphasis on focus. And so we live in a time now where people glorify multitasking. Oh, I can do 5 things at one time. Well, okay, I get that, and multitasking has its place. But if you're really going to achieve results in your life, and by the way, this is the crossover conference. If you're going to cross over, You're not going to cross over by accident. The only way that you can cross over is that you have to live a life of intentionality. You have to be intentional about everything that you do. And so right now, I want to talk to you about the power of focus. Now, here's the thing, my friends. One of the things I want you to understand is how, look, you know, I should almost be upset with Flora because she put me behind Cedric, right? And so, as you know, you've just listened to Cedric, and he is going to be a tough act to follow. And in no way do I intend to compete with him. But what the way we're gonna do this time together is I'm gonna give you. I want to share with you and help and just frame. Sorry, I'm getting a little background noise, Flora. Could you mute down the lines? Okay, there we go. Thank you. I appreciate that. So what I want to do is I want to share with you a very familiar passage of scripture. Okay. And I'm going to make a few observations about it. And then after I make the observations from this very familiar passage of scripture, then I'm going to share with you three, four observations from this passage to anchor what I'm going to share. Then I'm going to share with you three principles and three practices that will help you. I'm going to encourage you right now to grab your pen and paper, because I want to teach today, and after I'm done that, then I'm going to leave some time for some Q&A so that those of you who want to ask me some questions, you can come forward and ask me questions. And by the way, don't be surprised if I get excited. There might be some times where I get loud, but it's because I am passionate about what I'm going to share with you. And if you will take these principles that I'm going to share with you and apply them, then you're going to find that they will be very, very helpful to you as well. And so here is where we're coming from. So today, I want to share with you a little bit from Numbers chapter 13, and the real meat of it is going to come from verses 26 through 33, right? Now, in this passage of scripture, this is where the children of Israel, they've crossed over, they've been liberated from Egypt, and they've crossed over and now they are approaching the Jordan River, right? And this is the passage of scripture where Moses sends out the 12 spies to investigate the promised land. How many of you know right now that God has a promise for you? Matter of fact, if you know that God has a promise for you, why don't you go ahead and just put that in the chat right now? Say that I have a promise, because there are 110 of us on this line today that we've all come together. But I need you to be aware, consciously aware, that you have a promise. And so I love it. The chat is lighting up. I see Michelle, I see June, I see Anne, I see Josephine, I see Judy. Yes, you have a promise. We all have a promise. But in order for us to get to the promise, we have to have the right perspective. So let me just read this little selection from you just to frame it up for you. I'll make a few observations, and then I'll get into the meat of what I'm here to share with you today. So starting at verse 26 of chapter 13 of the book of Numbers, it says that they came back to Moses and Aaron. This is after they've gone out and spied out the land. So the spies have gone out, the 12 spies have gone out, and they've come back now. And so verse 26 says, they came back to Moses and Aaron and the whole Israelite community at Kadesh in the desert of Paran. There they reported to them and to the whole assembly, and they showed them the fruit of the land. They gave Moses this account, and here's what they said to them. He said, we went into the land to which you sent us, and it does flow with milk and honey. Here is its fruit. But the people who live there are powerful, and the cities are fortified and very large. We even saw descendants of Anak there, and those are giants, by the way. The Amalekites live in the Negev, then the Hittites and the Jebusites and the Amorites live in the hill country, and the Canaanites live near the sea along the Jordan. Then Caleb silenced the people before Moses and said, We should go up and take possession of the land, for we can certainly do it. But the men who had gone up with him said, we can't attack those people. They are stronger than we are. And they spread among the Israelites a bad report about the land that they had explored. Here's what they said. They said, the land we explored devours those living in it. All the people we saw there are of great size. We saw the Nephilim there. These are the descendants of the Anak that come from the Nephilim. And we seem, and here is the key thing. They said that we seem like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them. It's a matter of perspective. It's a matter of perspective. So let me give you a couple of observations from this text, my friends, because I want you to have this really, really clear in your mind, because I'm using this to frame up why the power of focus is so important. It's so important, in fact, that it is the one thing that changes everything. Okay, so here, let me give you some similarities first about all of the spies. Okay, so all 12 spies were leaders in their tribes, all of them. 12 sent out, 12 were leaders. All 12 spies received the same promise. All 12 spies received the same opportunities. Now, those are three things that are in common, right? Three similarities. Now, let me give you three differences. 10 of them said no, okay? 10 of them said no. 12 went out, 10 said no. 10 of them misunderstood the mission. 10 of them saw God in light of their circumstances. Now, when it comes to the two of them, 10 said no, but 2 said go, right? 2 of them understood what the mission was. And 2 of them saw their circumstances in light of their God. It's a matter of perspective. It's a matter of what they focused on, right? You know, here's the thing. The 10, when they went out there, they really, if you really analyze the text, they disobeyed God. They believed that the land had no future. They became cowardly. They were operating in fear. In their reporting to the people, they were ignoring what God had said to them. And they suffered from grasshopper complex. Grasshopper complex is when you see yourself small. When you look at the 2, and the 2 were Joshua and Caleb, they absolutely obeyed God. They insisted that they should enter and possess the land. They displayed courage that was rooted in their faith, and they had a calm assurance. But the difference is they saw themselves in relationship to their God. They saw themselves in relationship to their God. And so as you look at this text, right? So the idea is you can either focus on your circumstances or you can focus on the promise. The one that you choose is really up to you. It's up to you to decide which you're going to choose. Will you be amongst the people who will focus on circumstances and conditions and the problems? Or will you be one of the few who will focus on God's promise to your life? Now here, let me just give you a couple of key points, and then I really, really want to get into my talk. All I'm doing right now is I'm framing it up for you. So as you hear me ask that question, which one will you be? Are you going to choose the promise or are you going to choose the problem? Now, here's the thing. Focus requires for you to have a different perspective. You have to understand what your why is. You see, when you understand what your why is, and when I say what your why is, what I mean is what your purpose is. When you understand what your purpose is, you are no longer intimidated by feelings of fear, inadequacy, or discomfort. When we look at that story, and I'd encourage you to read chapter 13 and chapter 14, Joshua and Caleb saw the potential of the land and they saw the possibilities other 12 saw everything and every problem that would prevent them from obtaining the promise. So as you look at your life today, when you're faced with problems in your life and at work, do you choose to see the possibilities, or are you solely focused on the limitations in front of you? Here is something that you should write down and something I want you to anchor into your awareness. In this life, what you fight for is what you get. Where your focus goes, your energy flows. And so what you fight for is what you get. The second point that I just want to make here really quickly is that you can be surrounded by people who are focused on the problem and be a person who is focused on possibilities. So are you a possibility thinker? You know, in chapter 13, verse 30, Caleb tried to quiet the people. He tried to quiet them and said, let's go take the land because we can conquer it. But in chapter 14, when you skip a little bit further and you go over to chapter 14 and verse 9, they told the Israelites that the people in the land had no protection, but the Lord is with us, so we should not be afraid of them. So Caleb was trying to be a possibility thinker, trying to get them to focus on the goal, focus on the promise, to move forward. You know, sometimes God wants you to be the voice that speaks up when others won't listen. But if you're focused on the wrong thing, your voice can quickly become an echo chamber to the world rather than the kingdom. The third observation I want to make to you is this. Joshua and Caleb became the only descendants of that generation to see the manifestation of God's promise in their lifetime. What's the difference between Joshua and Caleb? The difference is in their focus. They saw the possibility, they saw the promise, and they were willing to fight for it. And they did not allow themselves to become distracted by the noise of the others, the doubt of the others, the fear of the others. And you will find that if you look at chapter 14, verse 30. So here's the thing. What I want to encourage you to understand is simply this, is the one thing that changes everything, the one thing that impacts everything is your ability to focus. Now, I've coined focus. I want to give you an acronym that you can remember. So here it is, right? It is forget obstacles, create unique solutions. Forget obstacles, create unique solutions. So you might be thinking, all right, Damien, I get all of that. I've given you the biblical foundation from where I'm coming from, with this message. So you might be thinking, well, is this even relevant to me? Is this relevant to me? So let me tell you how you know if this is for you, okay? This is for you if you find that you have a lot to do, but find more often than you would like to admit that your days get away from you. This is for you if you find yourself procrastinating on important things and waiting until the pressure of the deadline forces you to get things done at the last minute. This talk, my friends, is for you if you struggle with the feeling of letting yourself down because what you produce is good enough, but you know that you aren't giving your very best effort. Matter of fact, is there anybody out there that's relating to any of this? Are you seeing yourself in this picture? Let me give you another one then. This is for you. If you find yourself starting and stopping, and you're haunted by the thought of completing your incompletes. This is for you if you have a lot to do, but you struggle to consistently struggle to consistently maintain the momentum that you need. Am I by myself out here? Will this message help anyone? Because if you can't relate to this, I'll just pack my bags and I'll just go back home because I don't see any comments in the chat. I see only Rachel so far has said that she can relate to this. Thank you, Josephine. Thank you, Ivy. Listen, this talk is for you if any of these things touch it. Now, here's something that I want to share with you, right? This is a quote that comes from a book called The War of Art. It's by an author called Stephen Pressfield. And here's what he says. He says, there's a secret that real writers know that wannabe writers don't. And the secret is this: it's not the writing that is hard. What is hard is sitting down to write. It's not the writing that's hard. So this is for you. If you are someone that, if you are a singer that doesn't sing, if you are a writer that doesn't write, if you've got genius that you haven't manifested, if you've got books in you that you haven't brought forward, if you've got gifts and talents that you haven't begun to leverage yet, this talk is for you. Because at the end of the day, failure to accomplish your goals is always going to come down to broken focus. Now, I love this story. There's a very popular story. It's about Mahatma Gandhi, right? And the story is told that Mahatma Gandhi spoke to Parliament for 2 hours without any notes. And afterwards, a reporter asked Gandhi's assistant how he could possibly speak for so long without notes. And here's what the assistant replied. The assistant replied this. He said that, you see, you don't understand Gandhi, because you see, what Gandhi thinks is what he feels is what he says, and what he says is what he does. What Gandhi thinks, feels, and says and does is all the same. The reason that is because Gandhi had achieved a level of praxis, right? Here's the key point. When your thoughts, your feelings, your actions are all in alignment, then a person becomes focused. When values and thoughts and feelings and actions are all in alignment, a person becomes focused. And you know what? When you become focused, your character is strengthened. And this allows a person to lead themselves successfully. We say that a person becomes fully congruent. You see, what we should be striving for as people of God is praxis. And what praxis means is practical exercise or practical application of knowledge. It is the integration of thoughts, beliefs, and actions. You know, one of the ways that you can really begin to lead your life is to consistently keep your word to yourself. How many times do you say you're going to do something and you don't do it? How many times do you fail to live into your commitments? You get distracted doing things that are less urgent and less important, and you find yourself giving your energy away and giving your resources away because you're distracted. And so I want to talk to you a little bit today about this power of focus. Now, here's the thing. When we are focused, we achieve traction. Now, I want you to just kind of level the playing field here, and I want to talk to you about this idea of traction, right? So traction is any movement that moves you closer towards your goals. The opposite of traction is distraction. Distraction means that you're moving away from your goals. So any behavior that moves us closer towards our goals, that is traction. Any behavior that moves us away from our goals is distraction. Now, here's what we have to understand. All distractions are prompted by some sort of a trigger. Now, there's two types of triggers. There are internal triggers, and internal triggers are things that cue from inside of us. So let me give you an example. So an internal trigger is like when your stomach is growling, right? When you're hungry, that's an internal trigger. That growling in your stomach prompts you to go and get something to eat. Now, external triggers come from our environment. So for example, when your cell phone will ping, or your phone rings, it prompts you to pick up your phone and to check your email and to read a text message. But the thing to understand is that whether you are prompted by an internal trigger or an external trigger, the resulting action is either in alignment with your goals, which is traction, or it is not in alignment with your goals, which is what we call distraction. And the reality is, if you don't have any goals, then you don't know if something is a distraction or not, because you have no way of knowing what is distracting you from. Now, the thing is this: the process of consistently responding to triggers that distract you is what leads to an unproductive and an unfilling life, and a life that does not manifest the greatness that God has put inside of you. When you consistently respond to things that distract you, that's when you start to feel like you keep letting yourself down. You can't make progress. You set goals but never reach them. You have desires and dreams, but they stay in your head and they never get lived out. And so the solution to that, my friends, is that you need structure. See, many of us resist structure, but the reality is that structure equals freedom. Structure equals freedom. As I have traveled around the world and I have trained leaders and I've met highly successful people, what I've discovered is that most people who are goal achievers, most people who reach their dreams, they leverage the power of focus. And the way that they leverage their power of focus is they put structure in their life and they build in boundaries. Now, let me share something with you that I think will help you to understand this a little bit better. One of the things that very few people understand is that some people think that what drives behavior is motivation. But the reality is that the drive to relieve discomfort is really the root cause of all behavior. There's a book that I've read. It's called Indistractable. It's by an author that's author named Nir Eyal. And he said that the research shows that the drive to relieve discomfort is the root cause of all behavior. Right? So motivation is not really about accomplishing a goal, right? It's less about rewards. It's less about punishment. It is more about trying to avoid discomfort. So when you allow yourself to be distracted, it is almost always an attempt to relieve some sort of uncomfortable reality. Let me give you some examples of what these uncomfortable realities might look like. It could be that you allow yourself to get distracted from bringing your gift forward because you have a fear of not being good enough. It could be a fear of the uncertainty or the unknown. It could be that you're facing a challenging task, and because the task is challenging, you default to doing something that's less important. You allow yourself to be distracted. Now, these are just a few examples that I've given you, but let me ask you a question, and I want you to type into the chat. Drop a comment and tell me, what are some of the things that you find yourselves trying to escape? What are some of these uncomfortable realities for you that you're facing when you allow distractions? Think about it for a second, because here's the thing. If you're going to cross over, we've got to be focused, which means that we have to protect ourselves against distractions. But what are some of the things that you find yourselves doing? When you are trying to, what are some of the uncomfortable realities that you find yourselves doing when you're trying to, when you're engaging in distracting behavior? You see, for me, let me see here. There's a comment in the chat. What is that now? Let's see here. Waiting on the best time to do something, do a challenging task. Very good. Fear of failure. That's awesome. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Rose. Let's see here. Yeah, they're very, very good. And by the way, I am going to be looking at the chat, so I want you to comment in the chat, okay? So here's the thing for me, because look, I'm in this struggle too. This is one of the things that I'm constantly working at, right? For me, when I engage in distraction 9 out of 10 times, it's because I'm unclear about what I should be doing next. And because that feeling, that uncertainty makes me feel uncomfortable, what I try to do is avoid that feeling. And then that's when I'll open the door to distractions. And so what I want to do, right, is I want to take this moment now to give you a couple of practices, because people of God, Parklands Baptist Church, friends, I want you, Cedric talked about owning your dream. But the reality is the only way you can own your dream is that you must be focused. And so what I want to do is I want to share with you a couple of strategies now, some practical strategies. I'm going to give you 3 of them, practical strategies that will help you to create traction in your life. Remember, traction is movement and behavior that moves you towards your goal. Distraction moves you away from your goal. And so as we think about crossing over, as we think about owning our dream, as we think about living our vision, these are some things that will help you. So number one is you must know your rhythms of maximum effectiveness. I call this your focus-friendly window. At what time of day are you most effective? When can you work the longest without distraction? You must begin to know yourself, know when you're at your best, and the times when you are able to work with your maximum effectiveness, that is your focus-friendly window. And so if you're going to bring your goals forward, if you're going to cross over, it's going to require focus, but you have to know yourself. You have to know when you are at your most effective. And so one of the things that I do is that I use a time blocking technique to determine my focus friendly window, right? And I use the Pomodoro technique, and I'll talk a little bit about those in just a few moments, right? But so this is the first principle, the first practice, so that you're not scattered and you're not all over the place. Some people are morning people. Some people are night owls. For me, I can work late into the night with no problem. I love it because the house is quiet, the kids are asleep, I have no distractions, and I can work for a long period of time. My wife is a morning person, so she can get up early in the morning and she is chipper and she is excited early in the morning, and I am groggy. So I know that if I want to get my best work done, then I'm going to get it done at night. But when do you get your best work done? See, I want to give you something practical that you can actually use to harness your focus. The second principle that I want to share with you, second practice is this, is that you must have a criteria for how you choose to spend your time. Everything doesn't deserve a front row seat in your life. Everything that screams to you is not the most important thing. And if you don't have a criteria for how you spend your time, you'll give your time away. So what I'm referring to here, my friends, is I'm referring to setting time boundaries. You have to determine what's important to you. Only you can bring your genius forward. Only you can live out the promise that God has for you. Only you can make the steps necessary to bring, because it's not going to happen by accident. One of my favorite quotes from John Maxwell, he says that everything worthwhile is uphill. Everything worthwhile is uphill. If you're going to own your dream and bring your dream and live your vision and cross over, then only you can do it, and it's going to require your work and it's going to require your time. So you must have a criteria. So what I'm saying is that you've got to determine what's important to you. So how does your value show up in your life? You know, I really believe that you can tell what a person values by looking at how they spend their money and where they spend their time. And so what I want to encourage you to do is to add your non-negotiables to your calendar first. Prioritize and schedule your values to make sure that the most important things that you actually make time to make those things happen. So let me give you some examples of what this type of planning could do. Okay, so planning time to nurture meaningful relationships in your life. So for me, I value time with my family. So I can quickly decide that I will not take certain calls before 9 a.m. because that's the time in the morning when I'm getting my children ready for the day and we have breakfast together, we spend time together, right? If you value your health and wellness, then protecting time from getting away from you is going to be really important so that you're setting aside time for activities such as exercise. So you're scheduling those things that are most important to you. How about this? How about setting aside time to invest in yourself, to develop yourself, reading books, listening to podcasts, taking courses, or time for planning what you need to do next. I have met so many people. It's incredible to me that so many people that I have met do not use a planner. They don't sit down and plan their time out. Think about the week ahead of you and what you have to do, and then write those things down to make sure that you have a way of making sure that you are moving closer towards your goals. See, here's the thing. Our time equals our life, and we have to have time to execute and get the most important things done. But that requires focus. So again, number one, you've got to know your rhythm of maximum effectiveness when you're at your best. The reason that's important is because when you're working in those times when you're at your maximum effectiveness, you can get into a state of flow and time will fly because the work gets easy because you are focused. Secondly, you got to have a criteria for how you choose to spend your time. And then the third point, the third practice that is really important for you all, for all of us, is that you have to seize and command your time by budgeting it far in advance. You've got to budget your time. If you're gonna achieve your goals and you're gonna get to this place of crossing over from stagnation to productivity, you've got to seize your time. You've got to command your time. And that means that you've got to budget it far in advance. What that means is that you got to have a plan. Focusing, leveraging the power of focus means you must have a plan. You know, my wife used to be a middle school principal. And I think, you know, for you, that would be like primary school, right? And she was always bringing work home with her. And so I taught her how to establish time blocks during her day. So she had a block of time when she focused on responding to all of her emails. She had another block of time in the afternoon when her secretary would schedule any parent meetings. She had another block of time when she would meet with teachers. And so she established a plan for when things should happen. And it helped her to manage her day. And ultimately, it helped her to get more done. That's what I want for you. I want you to understand the value of time. That's why it's so important to focus. You can be like the 10 spies and focus on all of the circumstances and all the things that distract you and look at the environment, or you can keep the main thing the main thing. Don't live your life by majoring on the minors. Keep the main thing the main thing. So let me give you a couple of helpful practices. Number one is time blocking, right? So time blocking means that you're going to schedule blocks of time, and I like to do this in 2-hour chunks where no distractions are allowed. That's not a time where you're looking at social media. That's not a time where you're responding to any emails. You're not responding to any text message. You are getting your work done. So to make it practical for you, based in the context of what you've learned today from the various speakers, think about your big picture vision. Think about your big vision. What do you want your life to look like? Because when you get to the other side of your last heartbeat, what do you want people to say about you? Because we only have a certain amount of time to live life, and then we depart from the physical. What do you want to accomplish while you're here on earth, when you're here in the physical? And so you want to protect certain blocks of time, like 2-hour blocks of time, so you can focus on getting the things that are most important to you, living out your purpose, chasing God's promise. You have to set aside that time, and you have to protect that time. The second technique that I like to use, and this is really one of the things that helps me to really get stuff done, is I use the Pomodoro technique. Now, I use this technique because it helps to create rhythms of repeated work and rest. So here's how it works. The classic version of the Pomodoro technique is that you work for 25 minutes and then you rest for 5 minutes. Focus hard for 25 minutes and then rest for 5 minutes. But for me, I've learned to modify that, because for me, 25 minutes is not enough for me to get into my real clear focus zone. And so what I do is I do 42 minutes of work and then 18 minutes of rest to give myself some time. Okay, this technique allows you to get into the flow state. And so being in that state of flow, really what it means for you is that you are fully immersed. You're fully immersed in an activity or in a task. And many people call this being in the zone. And so that's what I want for you. That's what you should want for yourself, that you are blocking time. You're making time so you can get into the zone to allow your genius to arise, to allow the Lord to speak to you, to give you downloads, to give you witty ideas, to give you creative plans. See, when you get to that flow state, right, that is really a mental state where you'll feel energized, where you will feel focused, where you feel deeply involved in the work. And a matter of fact, when you get to that flow state, you start to experience joy while you're in the process of doing the activity. So what I would say is use the Pomodoro technique to train yourself to get into the flow state, and that will really, really, really help you. Now, for those of you that would like a resource, I have a free resource that I've created for you. If you'll go to bit.ly/focus freebie, there's some free resources there that I want to share with you. So if you'll just make a note of that, bit.ly/focus freebie, and you'll get some of these tools and resources that you can use to help you stay focused. This is to help you zero in. Now, before I close today, I want to share with you the thing that brings this all together. So I want to share with you the 5 economic principles of time. Okay. Now, the 5 economic principles of time are very simple, but they're very profound. Okay. Now, principle number 1 is this. It says, small amounts of time invested consistently yields a great return. Small amounts of time invested consistently yields a great return. Now, let's say, for example, I think an easy example to give is let's say going to the gym, right? You want to get yourself in good health, right? And so small amounts of time invested consistently yield a great return. So for example, going to the gym, it might be you want to get in better health, and so you might want to start exercising. And so even though if you go out and you go for a run, that one run, that one time may not seem like a lot to you, but if you do it consistently over time, it yields a result. If you focus on working your plan over time, it will yield a greater return. It doesn't have to be a big block of time, but what the key word here is consistency. You want to know why? Because there is a compounding effect to consistency. There's a compounding effect to consistency. So small amounts of time invested consistently yields a great return. The second economic principle of time is this. It says there is no immediate consequence for wasting time. So let's go back to our example of getting in shape, right? So let's say that you decide that, all right, well, maybe this morning you wake up, and even though you've made a decision to get yourself into better health, you've said, I'm gonna sleep in. And that one time that you sleep in, there's no immediate impact to that. But here's the thing, that leads right into the next principle. The third principle is that neglect has a cumulative value. So while there might not be an immediate consequence for wasting a single block of time, just like time invested consistently yields a great return, when you waste time, it adds up and it has a cumulative effect. Now, here's the piece that's really important to understand. Number 4 is that there is no benefit. There's absolutely zero value to allowing the urgent things to interrupt the important things in life. There's no value to that. So let me break it down this way. If I were to say to you, okay, well, your goal was to get in shape, and you say, okay, well, all right, so your goal is to get in shape, and I were to say to you, well, did you work out? Did you go for a run this morning? You said no. And then I said to you, okay, well, what did you do instead of going for the run? There's a better than average chance that whatever you did, if you were to look at the value of it, it probably wasn't something value added, right? And so we allow urgent things to interrupt the important things. But when you take a look at what those important things, what those urgent things were, and when you evaluate how much value they had, a lot of times they don't have any value. And so what I want you to understand, my friends, is this: as we talk about zeroing in and the power of focus, principle number 5 is that you cannot make up for lost time. Your time is your life equals your time. And so as we talk about the power of focus, you can focus on the promise or you can focus on the problems. You can focus on the promise or you can focus on the distractions. You can focus on the promise or you can focus on the circumstances. And where your focus goes, that is where your energy flows. And here's what I'm going to tell you. In this day and age that we live, where the world is becoming more interconnected, we're more connected now than we ever have been. There's so much social media. You've got Facebook, you've got Instagram, you've got Snapchat, you've got Twitter, you've got all these different platforms, TikTok, all these things. And then on top of that, you have email. All these things are screaming for our attention. But the thing is, can you stay focused long enough to work on your dream, to work on your vision, to bring your greatness forward, to pursue the promise that God has for you? And if you're going to stay focused, it's going to mean that you must command and use your time. Understand that you've got to invest your time consistently. Listen, when I came here today, I wanted to give you something that you could use. Because this is a revival season. That means you got to come out of this refreshed. But I want to give you some strategy. That's why I'm talking to you about this. And before you dismiss this and say, well, I know this stuff, remember this. Just because you know something doesn't mean you understand it. And just because you understand something doesn't mean that you know how to apply it. The test of how much you know is the application, it's the fruit in your life. So how productively, how focused are you with when it comes to your time? How much are you zeroing in on the things that really, really matter and putting aside the distractions, silencing the voices of the naysayers, putting aside doubt and fear, and being willing to have the courage to step into your genius and to work your plan, to use your time to bring forward God's promise for your life? This is a really important principle. This what I'm sharing with you are simple, practical things. Can you stay focused on the promise long enough? Do you want the promise bad enough to cross over? Are you willing to fight? Are you willing to discipline yourself? Are you willing to buffet your body and make it your slave? Are you willing to be your own cheerleader? Are you willing to put yourself on the front burner, put yourself on front row, because who you are and what God has entrusted you with matters? Are you willing to come out of hiding? All of that. If that's you and you're willing to do that, you want to break free, then I'm telling you, your freedom is coming in proportion to your ability to remain focused and how you leverage your time. Before I end my time with you, I want to share a quick video that I think will help to make the point. So let me just make sure that my audio is on. Yep, there it is. And I want to just sit back and I want you to really lean forward and listen to this short video.
It has never been so easy to spend the best hours of your days chasing distractions. You can be distracted or you can get epic work done. You can't do both. Some people, they can't focus anymore. The victim is addicted to distraction. The leader is monomaniacally focused on a few things, so they do not dilute the bandwidth of their focus, their energy, and their potential. I'm suggesting to you, you don't build a wide life and you don't build a wide career, but you go really, really deep.
You got to stay in your lane. You got to keep the main thing the main thing. You got to stay on your mission and not be distracted. You know what you have to do. You're paid to be where you need to be, and don't let anybody distract you from getting your job done. You're paid for what you do and for what you produce, and not for what you're distracted from doing.
Divorce yourself from the herd. Get serious about this. This is your game. This is your life. And before you know it, you will be at the end. We all know that life goes by in a blink. Start the process of breaking your addiction to distraction today.
Think about where you spend your time. Is it being wasted or is it being utilized? Handle the stuff in front of you and find every area of your life that you're just like, gosh, I'm spending a lot of time doing this stupid stuff, and get rid of it.
So you end up just wasting no energy on things that don't matter and focusing all your energy on things that actually matter.
When you understand that you always have a choice to go from autopilot to decision maker, everything in your life will change. Because you will realize the amount of garbage that you put in the way of your hopes, of your dreams, of your potential. Everything comes down to the decisions that you make.
It is never.
So my friends, let's see here. Did you all get the sound? Okay, good. Looks like you got the sound. Yes, give me some. If you heard the sound in the audio for the video, just type in the chat so I know that you heard it clearly. Okay, awesome, excellent. So friends, as I wrap up my time with you today, remember this: you have to zero in. The one thing that impacts everything in your life is your ability to focus. Forget obstacles, create unique solutions. Put the blinders on. Run your own race. You are important. Can I just tell you this right now? You are fearfully and wonderfully made. You are special. God loves you. God has a plan for you. I love Jeremiah 29:11. The Lord says, for I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, to give you a future and to give you a hope. God has a plan for you. I don't care how difficult it is. I don't care how bad it is. I don't care how bad it gets. You are going to make it. But the thing that will help you make it is your ability to stay focused on your goal, focused on your dream, focused on God's promise for your life. Listen, we're all called to be salt. We're called to be light in this world. And the question is, are you managing your life in such a way where you are bringing the light that you have for this world forward? Are you bringing your light forward? It all comes down to your capacity to stay focused on your goals, stay focused on your dream, and make managing your time a priority, because you are worth it and God deserves it. You know, our natural abilities are God's gift to us, and our gift to God is what we do with our abilities and our talents. You have talents inside of you. You've got gifts inside of you. But those things, talent is not enough. Do you hear what I'm saying? Sometimes the 5-talent person can be the hardest person to motivate because things come so easy to them. And there's some of you listening to me right now where you know you're a 5-talent person and you are living in mediocrity because you are giving a C- effort and people are applauding you because they think that your C- is A+. But inside of your heart, no one may not be able to call you out of it, but inside of yourself, you know that you are not bringing your best forward. I want to encourage you today. Tap in, zero in, and focus. Because at the end of the day, God requires that you steward the gifts that He has given to you. He's got a promise for you. And you don't get to your promise on cruise control. It's time to step on the gas. It's time to cross over. It's time to really live your dream. It's time to really get up and get out there and go after it. Nobody's going to make your life happen to you. Newsflash. Listen, let me give you this newsflash. Oh, let me stop share because I want you to see my face. Newsflash here, right? Nobody is coming to save you. Nobody's coming to save you. If you're going to live out your promise, bring forward your vision and own your dream, then guess what? You got to participate in your own deliverance. And that means that you cannot allow the enemy to distract you doing good things that are not the best things or the God things for your life, because you will end up wasting your time. And if you waste your time, you waste your life, and you will remain stuck. And I've said this a bunch of times. If you are stuck in any area of your life, I don't care where. I don't care if you're stuck physically, financially, relationally. If you are stuck in any area of your life, you have a problem with procrastination. If you're stuck in any area of your life, you have a problem with procrastination. And part of the reason you have a problem with procrastination is because you are not focused. You are not zeroing in. Use these principles, use these practices I've shared with you. Press past your fear. You are worthy. You are good enough. Nobody else needs to affirm you're a child of God, and there is value implicit inside of you because God chose to give you his breath of life. And while you have that breath of life, steward it well, manage your time, and focus. Leverage the power of focus and bring your genius to this earth and die empty. Live full and die empty. I want to thank you for your time today. I hope this message has served you. If maybe there's one person that the message has blessed, but it has been my honor to be with you today. If there's time for Q&A, I'm happy to spend a little bit more time with you. Flora and June and Pastor Reverend Ambrose, thank you for the privilege of speaking with your people today. It has been my esteemed pleasure.